Hi everyone, back for a analysis of day 2 with CU. Um, another really fun day. Another day with 100-mile-an-hour plus averages. Gary Ittner wins the day with 103.21 miles per hour, 2 miles an hour faster than the day before, and maximum distances pretty close to 400 miles for Ray Gimme here at 384. This was a area task with huge radiuses, and certainly not my favorite tasks. I prefer assigned tasks, but it was just the nature of the day. So you can see the scores here. I won't go through them this time. And let's take a look at the task real quick. So you can see here a 3D view. You can see there Lake Tahoe, Reno to the north, Minden here, the Pine Nuts, Mount Patterson, Mono Lake. And today is an extraordinary day. We fly all the way down and get onto the Whites and run south quite a ways into the Whites. So you can see here this Benton turn area. I think it's a 20-mile radius around it, and you can see pretty much everybody in the class went right to the back of that turn. And then we came back up to Hilton, 5 or 10 mile radius there, and then a 25-mile radius around Crestview. And this was really difficult because there was a lot of overdevelopment. There was virga and turbulence and the whole bit in here. And with this short run up to the north, and let me, for some reason there we go. With the short run up to the north, and it was a 3-hour, 30-minute task. There was, you basically needed all the runway twice, and here's the leaders in the into the second turn area. And I screwed up pretty badly. I didn't want to go through the virga, and I sort of misinterpreted what my UDI was saying and turned very, very early. And there were some menacing clouds and virga that we'd all gone through once before and then twice coming out. And the thought of going through it was a challenge for me. Hold on here. What is this again? Was definitely a concern. So for the weather, once again, I'm going to plagiarize Dave Nadler's blog. The forecast was for winds really to pick up in the afternoon, and this was system breeze, not necessarily a sea breeze, although they were aligned. Winds out of the west, and there was, I think the forecast was something like 30 to 40 knots or something early that evening, or gusts to 30 or 40, so really, really strong. Cloud bases were 1K less than yesterday, so I don't know, 16, but it seemed today that we got up pretty close to 17.5 again. And the increasing winds after 2 o'clock, and then blew to the north with possible OD around Mono Lake. And you can see here a picture of Dave Nadler. Really, really strong conditions. Potato Peak is on the right. I'm not really sure where that is. I apologize. But it was really strong. But there was also some really, really strong precipitation, and I'm thinking that was south of this, virga and I don't know, it's basically sleet. So it was a more difficult day than day one from a weather perspective. So let's jump in. So I've highlighted P7, Gary Ittner wins the day, DJ who wins the contest, and Rick Walters who's second here in the data. And I think that they raised the start altitude to 12,000 feet today, and that was to allow people who couldn't find good climbs out the top not to get stuck on the pine nuts and have to climb up the side of the mountain, just to make it a little easier for everyone to get out. And my first thermal here off tow right into 5.4 knots. Rick Walters takes 6.1, and we're off to the races and doing the typical step up into or onto the pine nut ridges. So here you'll see the standard probing around, and I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit. And everybody's trying to plot out where's the best climb going to be coming out of the start cylinder on the pine nuts to get south to Mount Patterson here again. So a 7-knot climb. It's going to be very, very strong again. And you can see Tango Alpha searching down here in the valley to the south. Same thing for Rick Walters. And here comes the rest of the crowd doing the same. So consistent 7-knot climbs up and around the pine nuts. And this is a little searching for the strongest climb and the slant angle. So let's take a look here. With the really strong winds, I'm sure that I was thinking again, I want to start early. And here you can see me here in the start cylinder. Let me slow it down a little bit. And I'm descending down to 11,000, so I'm primed up and ready to start already. And you just look for a climb rate to come out of the top here. And generally the idea, 1,000 feet below, is just to swing wide, big wide thermals, keep touching on the core of the thermal, but don't dig into it and start climbing until I have a group that I want to go with. And there it looks like I'm still waiting around at 11.5. And there's the big group. So let's take a look at who we have. We have Dennis Linekin, Tango Alpha, Eric Nelson, Tim Wells, Golf Juliet, I apologize, I forgot your name, Brian Milner, and who else is in here? Well, that's a pretty good group, and just for the fun of it, there's Ray Gimme, 7 Victor, doesn't look like he's ready to start yet. There's Doug Jacobs and 9-8, Pete Alexander. And there's 4 Bravo. Looks like Rick Walters is trying to start right out the edge here. But we're set back here a little bit, trying to get a little bit more distance. You can see Rick Walters, he's actually outside of the starting area. So I'm almost up to 12,000 here. And here comes Gary Ittner. The game here is to find the strongest climb that you can going out the top. And if you cross through 12,000, you have to reset the 2-minute timer. And if you jump into a big thermal and everybody takes it, they'll be 5 miles ahead before you are able to restart. So it's nice to work with this group and try and find a climb here. Gary Ittner coming in with us. So a group of about 8 or 9 gliders, almost half the field getting ready to go. And there's 4 knots. Not very good, but at the same time, it doesn't look like I want to wait around very long. And I climb up to 12.2. So not a spectacular start, but decent. And off to Mount Shasta to look for a climb. You can see a lot of the group weighted back quite a bit, maybe looking for a stronger climb. Oh, here they come. So Gary Ittner, winner of the day, Tango Alpha. So Pete Alexander in here. There's 4-3 Rick Walters, 5 Echo, Eric Nelson, and 9-8 Pete Alexander's right there with me. And coming into the lee side of Mount Shasta. And the wind is 12 knots out of the west. 12 miles per hour out of the west. So we hooked a 6.8 knot climb here for 2,400 feet. Papa 7, where are you? Gary Idner is somewhere else and he's in a bigger climb. Must be him over here. So Gary Idner finds out of the start cylinder 9 knots and takes it up another 1,200 feet. Sorry guys, I just got pointed out here. I'm calling this Mount Shasta because I'm watching the 15-meter flights as well as I do this, and I'm confusing them. But this is Mount Siegel here on the south end of the Pine Nuts. So not as good of a start as I had on the first day. Decent though. I get up to almost 15,000 here. There goes Eric Nelson in the right direction. But the real winners here look to be this group, which includes Dennis Linekin, 7 Victor, Ray Gimme, and Papa 7 Gary Idner. So they just found a better climb over here. Brian Milner's working the Sierras here a little bit, and look at that pack. Gary Idner, Tango Alpha, 7 Victor, and Dennis Linekin. So they got a little higher. Well, same altitude. They might have had a little higher start than they did. So interesting. Same look as the other day, and now Doug Jacobs is actually one of the earliest starters. Rick and Drebo started really early on the first day as well. There he is on Mount Patterson. But then here's the 2 superstars, Doug Jacobs and Rick Walters. And Rick's a little higher. Eric Nelson, and then the pack ahead. So I'm sort of ahead of the main pack and behind the leaders. So here we are coming up on the south side of Mount Patterson. And it looks like I'm going slow here, 110 knots. Ooh, 15 knots a climb. Oh, I just jumped into a thermal. And oh, I made 1 turn. Must have been the pull-up. So huge gaggle today. We have our 2 leaders out blazing the trail, and then the pack here. And I remember that there were abundant, strong cumulus clouds here. It was just absolutely perfect. It wasn't overdeveloped yet. They were hyper strong clouds. So what do I pull into here? Maybe they weren't that strong because that's 2 misses in a row. So let's see here. Rick found a climb, 6.8 knots for 2,500 feet. That's a medium climb, I would say. And I'm following Gary Idner here a little bit, Dennis Linekin, and then Ray Gimme, Tango Alpha, Pete Alexander, and Martin Grant. Or Grant Martin. I'm sorry, I can't remember. So Rick and Drebo, right over Mount Patterson here. And you can see the search pattern in the clouds. I pass up on Papa 7 and Ray Gimme's thermal there. Gary and Ray Gimme. It's pretty gutsy. And what do I get? No, another miss. Oh, look at that. Come in underneath Doug Jacobs and Rick and you find 9.9 knots for 1,000 feet. That'll work. Couple turns. So now you got a real powerhouse up here. You've got first, second, and a third for the contest leading the way. 7 Tango Sean Fiddler, Ray Gimme, Tango Alpha, Frank Painter, and 4-3 Martin Grant. I'm gonna go check. It is Martin Grant, yes. Sorry, Martin. Okay. So here we are coming into the first cylinder, and I'll just stop here and give you a look. There's the entry into the whites, and here's the first cylinder. I can't remember what the name of these mountains are, but this is like a 4,000 foot sheer cliff, and then the back of the cylinder is right behind that super tall mountain peak right there, and that's where we're headed. And there's Q almost all the way, and they end right here just to the north of the whites, and then it's blue down here. But we've got a really good cloud to work with. So Rick still leading, Doug Jacobs a little lower and ahead, or sorry, that's Dennis Linekin, Doug Jacobs just ahead of me and Gary Ittner, and then the rest of the pack. This was incredibly fun flying with this pack. I mean, we're absolutely screaming. You can see Papa 7 here over 150, 7 Tango over 150. So this is 120 knots indicated stuff. Sometimes more. 12 knot thermal, or 1 turn for 1,200 feet. And so the pack's starting to split up a little bit. I want to take a look here. That pack, I got 10 knots out of it, but they're holding a little bit. I'm guessing that thermal might have been a little weaker. All right, so here we are, just about to enter the first turn. And you can see the line here on the mountain ridge. That's the back of this, I believe, 20-mile radius. We're still at 16,000 feet, so absolutely screaming. Papa 7 pulls into 8.9 knots for 1,500 feet. Gets right up to 17,000. Rick find us 5.8 knots, and he takes that up for 3,000 feet. Interesting. So these guys behind probably gained a little bit, and they did. They're going to come in right on the top of the thermal. No, not necessarily. So a little gain to our lead group here. Dennis, Doug, Rick, and Sean Fiddler, and Papa 7 Gary Ittner. So here we are now coming onto the whites, and what I can tell you is there was a street and a line of really strong cumulus clouds offset out on the back of the whites, and that's what I went for. A lot of people stayed on the front edge, but there's no wind. You can see indicating here 1 mile per hour, 2 mile per hour, pretty consistently by most of the gliders. So I didn't think that there would be a lot of advantage. The sun's almost straight overhead, maybe a little bit to the west, but I decided to run all the way to the back on the the cumulus clouds that are back here, and it's blue on the front. We'll see how that turns out. So you can see here some of the guys behind have lost a little altitude on us. So we're doing really good up here in the front. We're the highest. And here we are coming over that super tall peak. Interesting here, Tango Alpha commits right down to the ridge and just turns the hammer on. He's lost a couple thousand feet there, I'd say. And I don't know, I have to ask him if the ridge was working very good. I didn't feel like there was enough wind to really be ridge flying. And so here you can see the back edge depicted here in that red line of the turn area. And what happened there? Where'd Doug go? Doug stopped for a climb. And what do you get? 9.7 knots. So you'd have to think that that worked out. Tango Alpha down on the ridge is definitely jumped ahead, although he's a little bit low. And 9, 8, and 7 Victor are just on the windward edge of the peaks. But Dennis stayed right with me there. Oh boy, did he. I wondered why my flying was going off. Turn around here to see the group. So Dennis split off a little bit. Turns just a little early. Ooh, and let's take a look here. So Tango Alpha committed down to the ridge, and he had to climb up the side. So he was behind a little bit to begin with, but you can see he's quite a bit lower, and that might have cost him some time there. 7 Victor, 9, 8, right to the back, right on the ridge, stayed pretty high. And off we go, back to the north. So I'll speed this up a little bit. So Dennis actually maybe did the best out of that group. There's DJ, 4 Bravo, so we definitely made some gains. Let's see, I'm at 14,000, well, DJ's 1,500 feet behind, so, or above, so that's net even. But here's the deal, these are weak clouds in here. You saw there was only a 5-knot climb out here, and both Dennis and I think Dennis and I, there's a really strong street headed back up to Hilton, and we go around to the when Dennis goes around here, but we basically take this route, and these guys take this route. And there's a cloud here with the Virga now that everybody has to sort of go around one way or the other. But we found I think a 10-knot climb over here, and we do pretty good on the way back north. But that definitely split the pack up a little bit. So there you go. I find 10 knots for 3,500 feet. And just watching the altitude, and I'm through DJ's altitude, and 1,000 feet above and a little touch ahead. Now this was an interesting thing. Dave Nadler got nabbed by this. There's a little 5-mile radius, or maybe it's even a 3-mile radius, little restricted area here, and I was going to fly absolutely right through it, and my UDI was on my lap. The suction cup on the window had fallen down, and so I wasn't really looking at it anymore. I was more using my SN10, and I felt the buzzing in the UDI, and that happened to be that airspace warning. So you see me turn and go around. Unfortunately, Dave did not get a warning from the SN10 and flew right through it and got a penalty today for that, which was unfortunate. But he actually, that's what he's working on now for the next update of the SN10, is to get a processing lightweight means of doing airspace warnings on the SN10. So anyway, let's take a look here. I'm at 15.5, DJ's at 14.5. I'm going slow, he's going fast, and the Virga must be right in here that we're all trying to go around. And you'll see me get the warning here very briefly. There I go. Make my turn around it. So, what are these guys taking over here? 4 Bravo is in a thermal, but that looks like a miss. No, Papa 7 got 7.4 knots for 1,500 feet. So they're still finding good climbs here. I'm at 16.3. Gary Ittner's down to almost 14,000 in the climb. So from an altitude perspective, I gained a good bit so far. Let's see, 5 Echo. Headed back to the north already. Rick and Drebo is already, looks like he's already touched Dayton and is headed back south. Alright, so what's in it? After that entry into, we were all together going into the whites, and here I am at 16.7 entering a thermal, and DJ's a couple miles behind at 16.4, and Papa 7 Gary Ittner's 500 feet below, a couple miles behind. So very small gain, if any. What I do, turn and miss there, give up a mile. I can't remember what the clouds were here. I know there were clouds and the sun was out, sort of under an overcast here in the Hilton area, but it was still working a little bit. You see Doug Jacobs and Dennis and the group here come here over the high ground and then bend in. And fortunately, I go direct and find a decent climb here with 5 Echo. And Gary Ittner's going around to the left as well. And I think there's a line of clouds here as well. But this is totally overcast in here with decent clouds down to the south and some overdevelopment happening. So gear is definitely shifted down a little bit. I'm at 14.4, DJ's at 14. Papa 7 a little farther back and in a climb is at 15.16. So here I pull into Eric's thermal. Thank you very much, Eric Nelson. 8 knots for 1,700 feet. And DJ flies through below at 12,000 feet. So I'm 3,000 feet above and have enough altitude to go and maximize to the back of Hilton here. And there I go, I make my turn, and I remember being very happy to have a farm here. There's a lot of traffic coming back up to the north as we're turning around and heading back south. So I'm higher, and DJ just found a big climb. 9 knots for 4,600 feet. And he got that on the windward side of this small mountain range there. That is a very timely climb. Alright, so here we are heading down into the final turn. We've got Rick, Walters right here, 5 Echo Eric Nelson. I just turned a 9.2 knot climb, 3 turns, 1,500 feet. Incredible flying in Minden. So what we're looking at is there's a big street that's going this direction. It's a little bit off course. And then there's a couple clouds out here in the middle of Mono Lake, but there's a lot of blue in between. And there's a big area of precipitation here with virga and all kinds of stuff, and that's what we ran around to both sides coming out of the whites. And also in the back of my mind you have the really strong winds expected to come into the area, the system winds, and they're calling for 30 knots out of the west. So I don't want to be late, and I'm thinking, you know, how far am I going to be able to get into this thing and still make it back? Because there's a lot of blue between where we are now and back to Minden. And what I don't realize is how strong this street is becoming. And I'm sort of being very conservative here and thinking, I don't want to land out, I don't want to get caught out. And it turns out to be a massive, massive mistake. I think I had 110 mile an hour average right now, you know, on the computer in the UDI. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I was really doing well. And by not going deep enough into, you can see here, I just touched it. By not going deep enough into this turn, I ended up finishing 28 minutes early. And on my UDI, I'm showing 6 minutes early. I'm showing on time to a point somewhere in here, but I've got to cross through the Virga to do it. And I don't want to take this huge leap of faith out here in the middle of Mono Lake, which is a known sinkhole, and do that. So I'm willing to finish a couple minutes late to be conservative and safe. But if I knew what was happening here with the street, and I'm sort of right on the edge of it, I would have gone farther. So hopefully you can see this play out. And it looks like Rick is kind of working in that street there. And there I go, I make my turn. Meanwhile, Rick's circling at 6 knots up there above me. And already here, I was minus 6 minutes. I turned early, and now I'm probably minus 8 minutes. And I know I've made a mistake, but I can't turn around now. And you can see Doug and Papa 7, the day winner, Gary Ittner, 4 Bravo. The experienced guys know to push through. And the experience I had going through the Virga and the lift and all the precipitation the day before, I just didn't want to get involved with it. Anyway, so now you probably see me climbing and going very fast. I think I started at 14.5 when I made the turn, and here I go through 16, going 130, more climb, 16.1, 16.2, and slowly the computer is gaining time. It's showing probably 15 minutes early now. Finishes all the way back here. This is something like a 100-mile final glide with no turns at 130 miles an hour. But I finish a half hour early, and that just kills the average speed. So anyway, that's the day. I wish I could describe what was happening back here with the clouds, but these guys simply tough it out and get back there. Let's go back to Doug. You can see, looks like he went almost to the very 3/4 of the way into the final turn here. And he's scratching down to 12,000. That's pretty low over Mono Lake. Down to 11.5. You can see I've almost finished. Doug started right about with me, so let's see if we can see here. As Doug finishes. No, he finishes over time. Interesting. So what's Doug taking here? He's taking 2.8 knots for 500 feet, so he's working. Papa 7, he's up at 12,000, taking 3.5 knot climbs. So these guys did struggle. There's no question about it. But the average for the first portion of the flight was so high. If I had 112 average when I turned, and that fell down to 90 or something because I finished early, these guys were probably looking at 115, 120 mile an hour averages, and then had a relatively slow ride home. So that's day 2. Everybody makes it from here. There's no surprises. Let me go back to the scoreboard here. You see Gary Ittner with 103 miles, pretty perfectly called, 3 hours 34 minutes, 4 minutes over. Second for the day, John Cochran, who's tied for the lead now, and unfortunately John's trace doesn't come through. The LX9000 doesn't do the right timestamp, so there's a problem with the file. Third, Doug Jacobs, no surprise there. Fourth, Rick Walters. Fifth, Bill Gawthorpe. He's had 2 great days, a second and a fifth, so he's in 3rd place. Gary moves up from about 7th or 8th to 4th with 1,000 points for the day. Steve Nichols, another great day. The JS1's flying great. Tom Kelly has a great day. Comes back in with a 7th. 8th for Ray Gimme. 9th for Grant Martin. 10th for Rick and Drebo. And let's see, 11th Dennis Linekin. 12th myself. 13 Sam Zimmerman. 14 Frank Painter. And so on. So I can't make the weather that we were flying through quite as dramatic as it was, but it was a very sporty day. Really strong clouds, but then that overdevelopment down into the final turn was awe-inspiring. So I'm really impressed for the guys who pressed through that stuff and made it work. And I made a massive mistake by turning that early and finishing in 3 hours in a 3-hour 30-minute net. So anyway, thanks for watching. That's day 2. We'll work on day 3 next.